Hello everyone. So thanks a lot for liking my video. So today we will understand the basic SIebel development steps. Okay. So now let's proceed with the basic SIebel development. As a developer, what are the things we require? What we how we will do the development? So all those things we will see. Okay. Now let's proceed. Okay. Now, this is called the layer diagram of SIebel. Okay, so the layer diagram means for creating a development, we have to think phase by phase. Okay, so the first basic phase is the data layer. Okay, so what we are going to understand today is that is called data layer. So in data layer, it actually uh, point to the database. Okay, so in database we have like in any application we will see there will be a database where we will be keeping our data. Okay, so this database means it can have Oracle DB, it can have SQL server, it can have any database, IBM DB, to any database it can have where we will be keeping the data. Okay, so for SIebel also, for keeping the data, we have a database. So how to connect to database, or what exactly we have to do for creating a new table or column? So those things we will understand. So the basic diagram of the SIebel layer diagram is there are three different layer we have to think of. Okay, one is data layer, which is called in the data layer we have all the database objects like table, column, all these things. Then the business logic layer. Business logic layer means BC, BO, field, join, link, everything we will be understanding the business logic layer. Okay, so today we will understand the data layer. Tomorrow or the next class we will be understand the business logic layer. Okay, now there is UI layer. UI layer means in the application whatever we can see, that we call it as UI layer, where we will be able to see the applet, we will be able to see the view, we will be able to see the screen application. So all these things we will be able to see. So those things we can call it as UI layer. So the basic development we have segregated in the three different layer: data layer, business layer, and UI layer. Today's topic we are going to cover the data layer. Okay, now the data layer, table and columns. The SIebel repository holds the definition of all the tables that are present in the relational database table, and their columns are the fundamental building blocks of the physical data model or schema that is used in the SIebel application. Okay, now any data we keep in the database, all those tables are present in two different places. Okay, one is physical layer, one is logical layer. Okay, now the repository which we call it, that is called logical layer. It means in the SIebel tools, like we might be knowing that for doing any SIebel development, or for doing any change in the SIebel, there will be a IDE provided by SIebel, that we call it as SIebel tools. Okay, so a typical SIebel tools look like this. Let's see, a typical SIebel tools look like this. Okay, so this is called traditional SIebel tools. Nowadays the SIebel web tools also available, from where we can do our changes. Okay, now let's log into SIebel tools and see how the typical SIebel tools look like. Okay, now okay, by the time it logged in, we will understand what is the physical layer and what is the logical layer. Okay, so the physical layer is something like the database. In the database we have the hardcore data, that we call it as physical layer. Okay, so physical layer. And logical layer, where we are keeping our information in the data, in the tools, whatever table we can see, that we call it as logical layer where we keep the definition. Okay, even we call it a SIebel like database definition. Let's say table name. So table name will be s underscore org underscore est. That is a definition. So that we are keeping in the SIebel tools. Okay. So let's say I am going to create a new table. So what I will do is I will there are two ways. I can go and create a table statement and I can create in the directly in the database, but that will not available in the repository. So how I can move my table? So how I can create a table? I can go to tools, I can create a table and give the name of the table. So that is the definition of the table. Now in that table I can create multiple columns. What should be the columns data type? So all those information I'll be creating in the SIebel tools. That's why we call it as logical layer. Okay. Now there is a physical layer. So physical layer means once we are creating something in the tools, that does not mean that it will be available in the database. So to make this gap, to to remove this gap, what we have to do? We have to do apply activate in the SIebel tools. Once we do apply activate, then from the physical layer to from the logical layer to physical layer, the table will get created. Okay, it will read the definition from here and it will get created. Okay, so I'll show you how to create a table in the SIebel tools and how to do apply activate. So all those things I'll show you. Okay. Now the data layer of the SIebel repository defines the physical storage of data used by all SIebel applications. The major project type in the data layer are the major object type in the data layer are table column, interface table, index and user key. So these are the objects which we able to create in the data layer. Okay. So in the tools we will be creating, we will be doing apply activate, then only it will get created in the database. Okay. Now let's move to next slide. Okay. Now while creating the SIebel table, we need to follow certain naming convention. Okay. So naming format. So it is like whenever we will create a table, we have to give a name in the prefix, then followed by name and then followed by suffix. Okay, so there are, from the prefix we can understand what kind of table it is, from the suffix we can understand what kind of table it is, and from the name we can understand for which functionality we have created this table. Okay, so we have to follow these three different two ways. Okay, now prefix. From the prefix, there are lot of tables which start with EIM. Okay. EIM is a mechanism by which we can modify n number of data, or we can create n number of data, or we can delete n number of data in the SIebel table. Okay, so that is the EIM table. It's a staging table where we can load mm, like 10 lakh 20 lakh data at a time, and we can run a job so that we can do modification in the real data. Okay, so that is the EIM process. So all the tables which are related to EIM will be starting with EIM underscore. Okay, so from the EIM underscore in the prefix we can understand that okay, these tables are EIM table, these are not base table. Okay, now coming to S underscore. Underscore is the base table. Base table means the table which are actually provided by SIebel or we are using in the SIebel application, that we call it as S underscore or the base table. Okay, so the sometimes we call it as vanilla table. Okay, the vanilla table means which are already provided by SIebel. Okay, now let's understand the suffix part. Okay, so naming convent, like name is nothing but this is like for which functionality we are creating this table. Let's say service request. So my table name will be s underscore srb underscore req. Srb stands for service, req stands for request. Similarly, let's say contact, s underscore contact. So s underscore is the is the suffix and contact is the uh, name. Okay, so like this we can understand that which table stands for which thing. Now coming to suffix. Okay, now if a table start with underscore att, it means this table is having an attachment. So if we have a attachment table, we can end with the suffix as att. Now assume that in a contact I am uploading a couple of documents, so it will be s underscore con underscore att. Okay, so any attachment will be created will be ending with the suffix, the table suffix will be att underscore att, so that we will understand okay this is a attachment table. Attachment table has a different properties. Okay, so in other table we keep only data like the first name, last name, email id, all these things we keep it. But in attachment we will be keeping that what is the file name, what is the file size, what is the file type, at which location we have kept this file. So all those informations we are keeping in the attachment table. So it's a different variety of table. That's why the table name also followed by underscore att, so that SIebel will understand, so that user will understand. So that's why we have created this the suffix ending with underscore att. Now there is relation table underscore rel. Okay, there are underscore ss table. Okay, the main important is underscore x, underscore xm. These are widely used and we need to understand what is this underscore x and underscore xm and underscore xa. Okay, so I'll give you this example, this I'll explain you this example from excel. Okay, so let's understand what is this underscore x, underscore xm and underscore xa. Okay, now let's see. So this is our SIebel tools. This is how the SIebel tools look like. Okay, now this is the table. Okay, so this is a object. So all these things we call it as object. So applet, application, bc, bo, all these are different objects. We'll come to this point in the latter part. Okay, so this is the table. Okay, so here is the name. So all the table starting with EIM underscore, these are EIM table. We'll understand what is EIM, how we'll do EIM. Those things I'll make another video and I'll explain you. Okay. For today we will understand the table part. Okay. Now all the tables starting with S underscore are actually the SIebel table. So these are SIebel provided by SIebel and we are using in the SIebel application. So this is the table name. Let's say I have a table called S underscore. This is the account table. Okay. Now the account table, it will be having lot of columns. Now the column name we will be defining here. Okay. So these are the column name. Now after this we have the data type. Okay, so some of the columns will be having varchar, some will be character, some will be date time. So these are different physical data type which we will be using. Okay, even we can define the length. So all these things we can provide. Okay, now let's understand what is underscore x and what is underscore xm table. Okay, so let's say there is a table I have s underscore org underscore ext. Okay, so this is a table. So I have a couple of columns like row id, name, email id, like this I have. Okay, now SIebel provided couple of SIebel provided exa table of s underscore org ext. Okay, so s underscore org underscore ext underscore x. So this is a this is a table which is present to support account BC. Okay. Now assume that this table is having 30 number of columns or 40 number of columns. Okay. Now this table is pointing to a particular BC called account. Okay. Now let's say I have, like, SIebel provided all these tables and SIebel provided these fields also. Now in future, when I started using the application, first a couple of requirement I need to create couple of fields. Okay, so I cannot use the columns which are already being used. There should be some extra columns should be present which I can use. Okay, so from where I can find those extra columns? Either I can create or I can utilize the columns which are not being used or which are present like that only and not been utilized. So where I can find those columns? Okay, so I can find couple of columns from this table as well, but that will be not enough. So that's why SIebel provided one is to one extension. We are calling it as one is to one extension. So it is internally provided. SIebel internally provided this extension. Okay. Now how the columns will be look like? It will be look like as, okay, attrib underscore 01 underscore 02, like this, attrib 4050, like this couple of columns SIebel will be providing, and with a different data type. It does not mean that all the columns will be from varchar only. Okay, so with a different data type all the columns will be present. It will be helpful for utilizing these columns for creating the field in the BC. Okay, because it is one is to one extension. Okay, now how this relationship is maintained between orgext and underscore x? So there will be a column called par row id, par row id. So let's see the data. Now let's say I have a data called 1 hyphen abc as the row id. Now name I am having is SIebel. Okay, email id I am having something. Now in the row id I have extension table. Okay, now in the row id I'll be having 1 hyphen abc, and in the par row id I'll be having same 1 hyphen abc. Now let's say I want to give the Aadhaar information. Okay, now Aadhaar information, Aadhaar is nothing but it's a government provided ID number which I want to keep it, like passport we have. So similarly Aadhaar we have to, in India we have this Aadhaar number which I want to keep it. Okay, now Aadhaar number is a customized field I have to create, and I have to keep the customer's Aadhaar number. So there will be no such field from the vanilla provided field. So what I can do, I have to create a new field. So what I can do, I can go to this particular column and I can create a field called Aadhaar number, and I can keep the number here like this. Okay, so is it clear? So the s underscore orgext underscore x is, we call it as one is to one extension, and this extension is belongs to the parent table, and we can create multiple fields by using these table columns. Okay, now let's say in this orgext I have 30 number of column, and here I have 30 number of columns. So we can create 30 plus 30, 60 number of columns, 60 number of fields in the account BC without any touching or without modifying any of the table column. We can utilize it. If all these table columns get finished, then we can think of for more creating more columns. Okay, now so this is one is to one extension. There is one more extension, we call it as underscore xm. So what is xm? Okay, so there is one more extension, we call it as s underscore org underscore ext underscore exam. So this extension we call it as 1 is to m. Okay, one to many. Okay, now this Susil Behra is having one other number, so I can keep it here. Okay, now let's say I want to keep Susil Behra's bike information and car information. So in a single table, I cannot keep multiple records. But in the XM table, it is 1 is to m. Like multiple records can be pointed to this particular record. Okay. Now how it is possible? Let's say I have a column called row ID. Now I have a column called ATTRIB underscore 01. RIB underscore 02 type and PAR row ID. Okay. Now in XM table you can create multiple record assigned to one particular parent record. Okay. Now let's understand. Let's say this row ID I am having 2 hyphen QWE is row ID. Now here I want to create a bike information. Okay. So let's say bike number is KA0202 A1234. Okay, so this is bike number. Now type I will be keeping as bike. Okay, now in the car row ID I will be keeping 1 hyphen ABC. So like this I just created a record which is saying that okay, so Silvera is having a bike. So this is the bike information. Now let's say I want to keep one more bike information. So what I can do, I can create one more record, 2 hyphen POI and OD05 A345. This is also a bike, and this is 2 hyphen U, sorry, 1 hyphen ABC. So I can, from the Paro ID, the same record Paro ID, I can get the information that okay, this particular person is having two bikes. Now assume that I want to keep the car information as well. Now for the car, how I can keep? I can make the type as car. I can keep the car in the attribute 02. Okay. Now let's say WB081825. Let's say this is the car information I want to keep. So this is 2 hyphen MVP, and I can keep the 1 hyphen ABC. So this is also a table where we can keep the parent records, multiple records. Okay, so this is called 1 is to m relationship. So there are three different kind of table. One is base table, one is 1 is to 1 extension, one is 1 is to m extension. So from the naming convention we can understand that okay, which kind of table it is. Is it a base table? It is 1 is to 1, it is 1 is to m. Okay, now let's go to, so XA. Okay, now what is XA? XA is nothing but attribute information also we can store. Okay. Now let's say there is a line item. There is a table called line item. Now line item we keep what are the products we have purchased. Let's say I purchased a TV. Okay. Now TV can have multiple attributes like what is the brand name, what is the type of TV, what is the size of TV. So these are different attributes. Okay, so those attributes I can keep in the one more table that is called attribute. So attribute we keep the information in the type and value format. Now let's say type I gave it as what is the brand name. and in the value I can keep LG. Type I have keep that value as size. In the value I can keep it as 40 inch. So like this I can keep. So type and value format. So that is called XA information. Okay, we call it as attribute information. Okay, so the intention here is from the suffix also we can understand how the table should be or what the table signifies. Okay, so we have to take care of the type also, like the naming convention, to understand what type of table it is. Okay, now let's move to next slide. So one-to-one extension table, I was explaining what is one-to-one extension. So in the BC, I'll be having couple of fields pointing to the base table s underscore contact. I'll be having couple of fields which are pointing to extension table. Okay, so these are one-to-one extension. Now, what is system column? Okay, so whenever we will create a table, there will be couple of columns created by system, and it will be get populated. The value also will be get populated by system. User don't have any interaction in the system column. Okay, user never fills the system column value. System columns are created by system and populated by system. Now let's understand what are the system column. Okay, there are row id. Okay, row id is something like it's a unique number generated by SIebel. Okay, throughout the application there will be no second value you can find in this row id. That's why we are calling it as row id. Okay, it is a unique number generated by SIebel, that is called row id. Now created by, created means who created this record. Like created means when created this record, and created by means who created this record. Okay, last updated by. Now assume that one record got created in 2010. Okay, now in 2015 somebody changed the address or somebody changed the email address. Okay, so how I can track that when this recent change happened? From the last updated and last updated by. Okay, so which agent changed the this record, or who logged in and changed this record value, I can figure it out from this column created last updated by. DB last updated means, is it the record updated from the database? Like somebody can go and change the data from the database by typing the update statement. Similarly, somebody can uh, write a procedure to update some data. Okay, so those things we can figure it out by DB last updated. Now parrow id is nothing but parent record show id. So we have understood in the XA and XM example. So there we have a column called parrow id, which actually holds the parent records row id information. That's why we are calling it as parrow id. Okay, so these are system columns. The intention here is like these columns never created by user, it is created by SIebel, and these columns we or the user don't populate this value. These are populated by SIebel itself. Okay, now before that I'll show you from the application perspective. Okay, let's see what are these data. Okay, now, okay, by that time the application get open. Let's create a table. How we can create a table? Okay, so for creating a table, let's say I need to log a project. So let's log a project, then we'll create a table. Okay, so from the table, every time we'll be creating from the this place SIebel tools. Okay, so there is a new object wizard. We can click the new object wizard. can go to general tab, you can go select a table. Okay, now click OK. So the table which are created by user, it can be CX underscore table name. Okay, let's say I want to keep the apartment information, so I'll be keeping apartment. Okay, now I need to select full sect. It's a standalone table, or 1 is to 1 or 1 is to n. So I have explained you what is 1 is to 1, 1 is to n. Okay, now let's see. Once I click finish, then the table will be get created. See, the table got created. Okay, now if I see the column, so these are the columns which are populated by system. So these are system column. By default, these columns are got created. Okay, now let's say I want to create couple of more columns. What I can do, I can keep name. This is data public. It means user need to populate this value. Okay, let's, this is var data type I need to populate, and length I need to populate. Assume that it is 50, keep it 100, and ignore and status as active. Okay, now in the apartment I'll be having different block. So let's say I want to create block. So this is one more column I have created. Varchar, varchar, and I'm keeping this value as 20, 30, same, and active. Okay, now assume that these two columns I have created. I'll, when as and when required, I'll keep adding the columns. Okay, now once this is done, this does not mean that the table will be available in the database. We cannot go, if we'll go to SQL developer and if we'll query this particular table by writing a statement called s underscore sorry select star from siebel dot cx underscore apartment, there will be no table to show. It will give us a error that table doesn't exist. To make it apply activate, what we can do, we have to do apply DLL. Okay, so we can do apply DLL from here, and we can click OK, and we have to enter the value here. What? The username, the password, and the database source. So this is not a server, so it is local XC. So we can provide the data source here, and we can click apply. Okay, normally these things are actually done by the admin team. Once we do any modification in the SIebel tools, we need to reach out to admin team to do apply activate. Any table level change, we have to send a mail to admin team to do apply activate. Okay, this is real time we do in our real, when we do a table change, we have to send a mail to admin team, they will be doing apply activate. Okay, now then only this table will be available in the database, that will be physical layer. Okay, so this is the logical layer. The once table is available in the database, that will be physical layer. Okay, now we have, did we open the SIebel application? Yeah, so typical SIebel application look like this. Okay, so this is account screen. Now let's say I want to understand that when a particular record got created or when it was last modified, from where I can identify. So let's say this is all accounts. So these are a couple of records are created. Now from help about to view, we can figure it out that, sorry, from help about record, we can figure it out that when this record got created, okay, created on this particular date, okay, now created by this particular user, updated on this particular date, updated by this particular user. So these are actually the system column which are populated by system itself. Row id is this one. So this, by this we can figure it out. Now recently I have created this record. Now let's understand. So that was the vanilla record and this is created by me. Okay, so now help about record. See, recently means 27 February I have, so 27 April I have created this record. Okay, and the modified also at the very same time. I didn't, after that I didn't modify. That's why it is keeping the same almost same time. Okay, so by this we can see created on, created by. Okay, so these are the columns which are populated by SIebel, and we can see this record. Okay, now let's move to next slide. Okay, now coming to index. So what is index? Index is help us to find a record very quickly. Now assume that there are 10 lakh record, and out of those 10 lakh record, we are querying a record very frequently. Not a record, like some column we are querying very frequently. Let's say my I'm searching a record from passport number. Okay, that passport number I have kept in the contact. Now if I am searching a record by passport number, so it is frequently used, and assume that out of those 10 lakh record, this passport number, when I am frequently using, okay, if I have more record, then it will create a problem for slowness. It is like if I am searching a passport record and it is giving me, it is returning me a result with 5 second or 7 second, so it is like a bit slowness is there. Okay, so what we can do, we can ask DBA people to fine tune this query, okay, or to fine tune this result, okay, which is getting the output, which is getting coming from the database, to make it fine tune, or the return time should be very less. So what they can do, they can suggest us to create an index on a passport number. So indexes are created to find the result very quickly. Okay, and this is actually take care by DBA people. Some are already provided by SIebel, some are actually created by, like suggested by DBA. Like if we feel the slowness in finding any record, then we can reach out by giving the query. We can reach out to DBA. They can suggest us that okay, you create an index on this particular column so that the result will come very quickly. Okay, so we create index. Where we create index, under table we have the child object called index. There we can create an index so that the result will be quicker, come very quickly. Okay, or the response time will be very less. So that we call it as index. Okay, now what is next? Yeah, the next is user key. So user key is nothing but this is like to maintain a uniqueness. Okay, now, only one record maintaining with uniqueness is not enough. Now let's say there is a contact I am creating, or there is a account I am creating. Okay, if I will keep one name, let's say Sushil Behra, so only name will be not enough to maintain a user key. Okay, so what happens is, so that's why we can keep combination of 3 4 column or 2 3 column. Okay, now let's say I have a name, then I have a email ID, and I have date of birth. Okay, so let's say Sushil Behra, a single Sushil Behra having date of birth as 2nd September 1985, there might be another Cecil Behra with having same date of birth. Okay, but there will be not another person present with the same name, same email ID, and same date of birth. So that can't be possible. Okay, so we can take three different columns and combinedly creating this like combinedly making user key, and we can say that so that when a new record got inserted, what it will do, it will cross check that okay, name, email id, and date of birth. With these three combination, is there any other record present? If it is present, SIebel will not allow to create this record. So that's why we create a user key, so that to remove the duplicate record or to avoid creating a duplicate record. So user key is present because record can be created by any of the user. It is not like people will be remembering all the records. Okay, and record can be created from any of the integration as well. Okay, so to avoid creating a duplicate record, we maintain user key. User key is nothing but it's combination of couple of columns. So those three combination or those two combination, if already a record present, it means SIebel will not allow to create that record. If there is no such record with these three combination, then only we can create a new record. That is called user key. So this is all about today's class. Okay. So we will be understanding these things, that in the table, in the database layer, we have all these things only. Okay. So we can conclude for today with this much. Tomorrow or in the next class, we will understand the business logic layer. Thanks for being my YouTube channel. Okay, and do like, share, subscribe to this.